The last time I had a hose similar to this one made at the hydraulic shop, it cost me over $100. But today I'm going to make one at a fraction of that price right here in my own shop. Well, I finally bought my own hydraulic hose crimper. In this video, I'm going to show you what it takes to buy one, set it up. Then we're going to put it to work, make a few hoses, and by the end of this video, hopefully you'll be able to know if this is something that will be a good fit for your operation, or if you're better off sticking to the high dollar hose shop. So let's get started. Now, I don't know about you, but it seems like every time that I need a hose made, it's always at the worst time. It's either on the weekend, it's after hours, the hose shop is closed. And actually we have a few options in town, but I have to drive like 20-30 minutes to have a hose made. And yeah, it's always, every time I need one, they're not open anyway. I have to wait till the next business day to go have one made, and then I have to drop it off, leave it there, have them make it and then come back and pick it up. So a lot of lost time in production. And then on top of that, you add the cost in to have it made. And for those reasons, I decided just to go ahead and purchase my own. And that way I've got it here in the shop and I can make a hose if I need to, if something pops up. So let's take a closer look at this. I'll go over it, tell you the brand, where I got it. Then we'll make a few hoses, and then at the end I'll do some pros and cons. So you can see here, this is the Hydro Crimp brand. There's a website where you can order this. And here is the manual. There's the model number, HCP16MP. And as you can see, it's just a manual hydraulic pump crimper. They have a bunch of these, or a bunch similar to this, on Amazon. And I decided to go this route for a few reasons, and I will point those out. One is the actual Enerpac brand pump. Enerpac is a pretty well-known brand. The other pumps that come on the Amazon style crimpers are just unbranded. Also, the Amazon, most of those have a soft line here. This is hard line. Small detail, but just something worth noting. Just like all the rest, you have a tray for the dies. And my understanding, this will crimp any holes that I needed to crimp. Basically a 1/4 inch up to 1 inch. Those are ID. That's internal hose diameter, which is usually how you measure hose. Now all of those Amazon style crimpers, including this one, they're made in China. And this one did cost a little bit more, I think, because of the Enerpac pump. And so you can get one cheaper than what this one came out to. And another option you can find is a lot of these will have an air-driven hydraulic pump. However, with the hand pump, I can take this out to the field where I may not always have power or an air compressor. And just making a couple of ends, it's not going to be any issue at all to use the hand pump. Here in the shop, it would definitely be handy to have the air pump. So I may look at adding an air pump to this, maybe a quick connect in the back, where I can change connections from the hand pump to the air pump. And at least here in the shop, I will have that option. But this thing is super portable, already comes on the base. It is fairly heavy, but it's not so heavy that you can't move it around. Take it out to a piece of equipment out in the middle of the field if you needed to make a hose. Now the worst part about any of these is that these are set up for metric, and so you're going to have to use metric. It still will work even though you're buying, say, a 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch 3/8 hose. You just would be handy if you have a digital micrometer, which I do have, and I'll show you how to use that here in a little while. And then I'll show you what the manufacturer of this one recommended that I do for your normal 2-wire hoses. If you don't know, 2-wire it just means that it has 2 separate layers of braided wire in that hose. So you have rubber, braided wire, rubber, braided wire, and then another rubber jacket on the outside, and they give you your 2-wire. 4-wire is exactly how it would sound. It'd be have 4 separate braided sections in it. Most common that we use around here, and what I have ordered to use, is 2-wire hose, and so that's what I'm going to show you how to crimp with this today. Now I have a few hydraulic hoses that I need to make for this rake, and those hoses stretch from the tongue all the way back here. And if I had to have this hose made at the hydraulic shop, even though it's just a 1/4 inch, I bet it would be over 100 easy. Probably 115, 120, I'm not sure the actual length. I want to say the last hose I had made similar to this was about 9 foot long and cost me a little over 100 bucks, I think closer to 115. I had 2 of them made. They actually went on my hay baler. Had 2 made at the same time, and both of those together was about 230 bucks. So if I have that happen very often, then this thing is definitely going to pay for itself. But let's go ahead and get this hose off here, and once I get that out, I'll lay it out on the concrete floor, and then lay the new hose out beside it, cut it to length. That will match it up pretty good on the length. And then once I get all that done, then we'll get over to the crimper, and that's when I'll catch back up with you guys and show you how to crimp some hose. Alright, got that one out. Let's go make a hose. Now what I'm using for the rake is this hose I picked up from Vevor, and the price was right. It actually seems like pretty good quality hose. Of course, everything from Vevor, we know where it's made, but you know, if you know what you're getting and it works for you, okay. It is rated for 5800 psi, which most 2-wire hoses that are 1/4 inch are. And yeah, we're gonna see if we can make it work today. For this hose, I'm going to need 1 straight fitting, and I'm actually going to need a 90-degree fitting. So here is my 90-degree fitting, and just to check fitment right quick. Yep, not a problem. Sometimes if you have a hard time getting these hoses to go in these fittings, you can put a little bit of grease on the inside of your hose, and that'll help it slide in there. So the next thing is, how do we know how to set this thing? Because I'll show you here on the screen, there's a graph or a chart here in the back, and it has a range of different measurements on there to basically tell you what size, you know, your crimp spec, whatever your crimp spec is, it tells you which die to use. So you have a range there that these dies will work in. And these 1/4 inch hose and 1/4 inch hose ends here happen to be the number 16 die. If you have a reputable hose supplier and fitting supplier, for instance the discounthoses.com, on their website, if you order hose from their website and fittings from their website, they have a chart that you can look up, and I'll put a link to it here, because I do have their hose and do have some of their fittings, and I looked on there, and the setting was on there. It gives you a crimp spec in that chart. You go down and find the hose that you're using, and find the model of fittings that you're using, and it gives you a recommended crimp spec. And it actually gives it to you in millimeters. So you could come on this dial here and set it to that crimp spec using the die and the range that is in that crimp spec is in, and that'll get you in the right area. Another way, if you don't have a crimp spec, like this Vevor hose here, there was no crimp spec on it, but I did reach out to the manufacturer, Hydro Crimp, of this crimper here, and asked them, how do I know what setting to use? And they said, for most 2-wire hoses, any size, you can reduce the outer diameter of your hose end fitting here 2 to 3 millimeters, and that gets you the setting you need. So let's measure this hose in here with some calipers to see what we get. I'm on millimeters, and 19.2, somewhere around there. We'll call it 19 to 19.2. It's going to vary a little. 19. So let's just call it 19. 19.04, 03, 02. 19 is close enough. So if we reduce that by 2 millimeters, it's going to be 17. With our 16 to 19 die in here, we could set this dial here to 17. That would make the light come on when we get to our setting. You could do 3 millimeters. That's going to get you at 16. Or I think I may split it down the middle and do 2.5, and that'll get us at 16.5. So we're finding the diameter of our hose in here, the outside diameter. We want to reduce that with the crimp 2 to 3 millimeters. So you subtract that from this outer diameter. I'm going to go for a reduction of about 2.5. So I'm going to set the dial here to 16.5, and we'll see what we get. So we want to set this to 16.5. So I have it setting at 0, and I will try to get you down here to see. All these little cameras don't focus real good, close distances, but what I'm going to do is change this to 0.5. You can see I'm on 0 right there. I'm on this. It's just like setting a torque wrench. I'm on 0 on my big scale, 0 on my dial. If I turn this to 0.5, we're set at 16.5 because we have the 16 millimeter die in. So I could have my 16 to 19 die in here like I have. I could take this up 2 millimeters, and that would be 18. I could take it up 1 full millimeter, that would be 17. Hopefully you get what I'm saying here. It sounds complicated, but after you do a few of them, it actually makes sense. And most of the time you're going to be doing similar hoses anyhow. I'm only going to be doing 2-wire hoses, so I could almost leave this die set, or this gauge set where it's at, this dial, and just put in different dies, and it'll be real close. And if you keep with the same brand of fittings, you can actually make you a cheat sheet, a reference sheet, so that you know whatever size hose you're using, you can put your die in that you need, and put your dial where you want it, and you'll have it. Some of your bigger fittings, if you have a longer 90, you might actually have to put the hose through here first, put the 90 in on the other side. But these 1/4 inch hoses are short enough that they go in through the die, no problem. And I'm just going to line it up on the back side to where the end of that die is right at the curve on my fitting. I'll try to get you a picture of that, but it's kind of a tight spot. There is only one knob here on the back of the pump, and that is going to be your pressure or your vent. So I'm going to tighten it up, righty-tighty, and that's going to get us in the pressure mode. And I'm gonna go ahead and take up some slack in this die. I'm gonna start pumping. You may or may not be able to see it closing because it goes pretty slow with the pump. And once I start touching the outside of this hose end here, then I will look on the other side and get it to my final spot within the die. And when I'm happy with that, I'll actually start crimping. Alright, I can kind of start feeling it. And the one thing you want to do when you're crimping is to always make sure that this hose end fitting here is pushed on as far as it'll go. So I always check that. It's kind of the last thing I check before I really start bearing down on the pump to crimp it. Got it where I think I want it, so let's do it. So you can see our light bump on there, and that tells us we're at the pressure setting that we set with the dial, and we should be crimped. So you can see there the light came on. I'm going to release my pressure knob here. And you can see that our light went out. And we have a crimp. I mean, it does a pretty good job. I'm happy with that. Now again, will it hold up? That's going to be the test. Okay, there's one down. Now let's do the straight end. Same size fitting, so I'm going to leave my dial in the same place where I set it a while ago at 16.5. I like to kind of twist these on and make sure they're bottomed out. And again, close my pressure knob there, vent knob. Another thing I noticed is that I had to open this cap here to let it vent. It's not a it doesn't naturally vent, I guess, so you actually have to just kind of crack that open. If you close it tight, then it can't suck the hydraulic fluid out of here like it needs to. So just give it a little twist, not enough to where it comes off, but just enough to where it's kind of loose and it'll provide a vent. I'm gonna go ahead and close this die some, get it close, and then when I feel it start to grab onto the outside of that hose end fitting, but I can still move it, I'll stop and make sure it's in the position that I want it to be in. Should be getting close. Alright, it's barely grabbing onto it. Let me get you in here and show you. As you can see, I've got it just barely grabbing onto that fitting, and so I'll look in the back here and make sure it's where I want it to be. I like to show a little bit of that shoulder of the fitting. And now we'll go ahead and start building up pressure and get our crimp on it. Be watching for this light down here. It seems like it's never going to come on, but it does. And now I want to make sure my hose is pushed in there. It's good to go. And there our light came on, so we're at our crimp spec. We can release our knob. That'll let our fluid drain back down into our pump reservoir and open up our dye head. And there's our other crimp. Alright, I'll get this put back on the rake. Do a few more hoses. And then I actually have some hoses on the baler to make. And for that, I'm going to use the Discount Hydraulic Hose Hydrolax brand. And they're same fittings, just a different hose, but the crimp spec is basically the same. I think it says 16.4. Alright, I got all the hoses done that I was wanting to get done on the rake here. So got new fittings here, new hose. Did hose going back up to the front to the tractor. This is a crossover hose to that cylinder, and then the other crossover hose, which is a shorter one here. And yeah, looking good. And the next thing I want to do is actually hook these up at the tractor end. I'm gonna get out in the open and actually operate this and make sure nothing leaks and that it all looks good. And then I'm gonna call this good, and we'll keep an eye on it as we use it and do some raking with it. The other thing, notice I do have some oil around here, and I don't know if that's because it was seeping out of one of these, out of that hose, or if I actually have this valve here leaking. The other one is doing the same thing. So I might have to replace some seals or something in these valves, but I'm gonna clean all this off and make sure it's nice and clean, no oil or dirt or anything. That way I can tell hopefully where the leak is coming from the next time we use it. But as far as hoses go, I think we're good. Alright, I looked this over, cycled it several times, filled those lines back up with hydraulic fluid, and I don't see any leaks, so I think we're in good shape here. Of course, we'll continue to monitor this and make sure it's all good as we use it, but as of right now, it's looking pretty good. Alright, here is another hose that I have leaking on my baler. And it's been leaking for a while, but it hasn't been enough really for me to worry about. It's not just spraying out, it's more of a drip. And it's really only when it's under pressure. And when this tailgate is down and you're rolling around baling for the most part, that bottom part isn't under pressure. It only comes under pressure whenever you lift the tailgate up, and it's a real short cycle time, and then it closes back. But I had to replace some bearings in one of my idler rollers here. The baler's down anyway right now, and while I have the opportunity, I want to go ahead and replace this hose so that it's not leaking everywhere, and then I won't have to be worried about it, stressing about it blowing out while I'm in the middle of the hayfield. So I'm going to get this off. I'll take it in the shop and lay it out, and that way I know the exact length that I need to make the new hose. no leaks. Just cycle the tailgate a few times and double check my connections and make sure nothing's leaking. So here is the roll of the discount hydraulichose.com hose that I ordered. Again, this is also 1/4 inch, but as you can see here, the brand, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, if it's Hydrolax, and you can see the model. Again, this is an SAE 100 R2AT. Very similar to the Vevor. This was a little bit more, not much more, definitely affordable, and appears to be a well-made hose also. But this is the first time I've used it, so I can't really comment on longevity, so I want to try it out. But I have plenty of 1/4 inch hose here. I do need to order maybe some 3/8 because I do have a few 3/8 hoses on some equipment. And then my tractor loader actually has some 1/2 inch hose on it, so I'll probably order a section of 1/2 inch and maybe do an inventory of all my fittings and order some of those as well. That way I have them on hand. And then hopefully I never have to make a trip to the hydraulic shop again. All right, you see me make some hoses there. Really happy with it so far. The crimps look good to me. We'll go over some of the cons first. Obviously it's a hand pump. I knew that when I bought it, but that makes it ultra portable. You have a handle here and a handle here. It's not super heavy, not so heavy that you can't pick it up and move it to where you want it to go. There are pieces of equipment that have hoses routed in them and through them, and it's time consuming to get those hoses out. If you had enough slack, you could potentially take this to the machine, just get out enough hose to allow you to reach this machine, or put this where you can reach the hose, and then redo the end on that hose and keep you from having to take the hose completely out of the machine. But again, you're using a hand pump. This is somewhat of a con, but I knew that when I ordered it because I wanted it to be portable. Other con is, yes, it's in millimeters. All of your chart is in millimeters, so you have to do a little bit of figuring there and math and figuring things out. But once you make a few hoses, it's not going to be a problem. You'll get used to using that. And like I said, it's kind of confusing at first, but once you do it a few times, it makes sense. And hopefully I explained that. Again, you're measuring the outside of your hose end fittings, and you want to reduce that by 2 to 3 millimeters if you're using a 2-wire hydraulic hose, which is pretty much all I'm going to use, so that's going to work for me. Other cons, let's see. Other con is I'm not 100% trusting of the dial and the light here. It did seem to be consistent, but I think another way to see your crimping pressure would be nice, such as a gauge up here. And I know some of the crimpers you get on Amazon come with a gauge. I may add one to this. Again, if I put the air over hydraulic pump on here, I might actually also add a gauge. I know some hydraulic shops crimp by pressure, so if they do that, the pros do that, then odds are it works. So having a gauge on here, I think, would make this even more consistent and just be another backup, a redundant method of knowing what your crimping pressure is, and not completely relying on that light, because you do have to have the battery in there. If the battery dies and you don't know that it's dead, then how do you know that you reached the crimp spec? The other con is I don't know how easy or hard it's going to be to get parts for these. Hydrocrimp seems to be pretty responsive to messages. Like I said, I messaged them several times asking them how to set this up for the hose and ends that I was going to be doing, and they responded. So I think based off of that, their response is going to be good, but I don't know. It's a Chinese-based company. They did send an extra set of seals and O-rings. Looks like some Teflon backup O-ring there, and then some O-rings, an Allen wrench. So I did send a few spare parts, but if I use those, hopefully I don't have to get to that point. Hopefully this lasts a very long time. But things happen. It is a piece of equipment and things fail. Another con, like I said in the beginning, I did pay a little bit more for this than what you find on the units that are on Amazon, and they essentially look the same, other than, you know, this is an Enerpac brand pump, where your Amazon crimpers don't have the Enerpac. Whether that's the price difference, I don't know. However, I will put links to those Amazon. I'll do some looking at those and kind of compare to this one, since I do have experience with this one, and I'll throw some links to those down in the description if you want to check those out, so you can compare this one. I'm not affiliated with these guys, at least not yet anyway, as I'm making of this video, so that might change, but right now I'm not affiliated with them. But I will put a link to the website and to this one, and you can look at this one and look at the air operated one, and if it's something you want to invest in, then have at it. And like I said, I will post similar ones to this one that are on Amazon, and you can look at those and do some comparison for yourself. They basically look the same. I will say, what I did see on some of those on Amazon is these slide in, these die teeth. That's another thing I'll show you, is that these just pop out. Oh, didn't mean to do that. So these just pop out, and you want to put them in. There's a hole back here, and that just a detent. And so if you want to put these in and change them out, they just pop out, and the new ones pop back in. Kind of hard to do with one hand. And there you go. I just popped that one back in, and it's good to go. And it's held in, I think, with a little detent spring in there. Well, all right, I think I've showed you pretty much everything that I was wanting to show you on the Hydro Crimp. And see, I made 3 hoses there for the rake, made a hose for the baler, and worked great. Would I buy this again? Is it worth it? To me, absolutely. Those 3 hoses there I made on the rake. Now, I was filming all of that, so it took me a little while. It usually takes you twice as long to do anything when you're filming it. It seems like, anyway. And if I wasn't filming the hoses that I made on the rake, I could easily have knocked those out in about 15 minutes. So, yeah, a lot better than having to run to the hose shop and have one made. That's a 20-25 minute trip just one way to the shop. So yeah, absolutely worth it in my opinion, especially for me. Now let's be honest, there is some upfront cost here, and that's what you're going to have to work out on your own to figure out if this is something that you want to do, because yeah, you have to buy the crimper. I gave right at $1,200 for this one. There are cheaper ones on Amazon. Look at both. I'll throw some links in the description. Like I said, you can check them all out and decide which one's right for you if you want to go that route. This comes with the dies, all the dies that I will need for it. Also, something else on this one I didn't mention before is that I could order some more dies from Hydro Crimp and actually be able to crimp AC hoses. And also I can do air hoses with this. But again, this just comes with the dies to do the hydraulic hoses. But being able to do those other hoses as well is something that I may look at in the future. And also I may look at adding the air over hydraulic pump, like I mentioned before. The other thing to think about is the upfront cost of having to have hose and fittings on hand. You can sink some big money into that pretty quick if you plan on having a lot of that on hand. I just want to keep maybe 50-foot lengths of each hose or each size. That's going to be 1/4 inch, 3/8, and 1/2 inch. Pretty much all my equipment has one of those 3 sizes on it. And then I'll just do an inventory of all of my fittings. Obviously, I'm going to have some straight fittings for JIC. Most of my stuff is going to be JIC, so that'll help simplify things also. And I'll just keep a couple of straight and a couple of 90 fittings of each of those sizes. And that way, if I'm in a bind, I can make a hose, and then later on, I can reorder that as I use it. But yeah, the upfront cost is really going to be the main deciding factor, in my opinion. And really, that brings up the next point, is that this is more of a convenience thing than a money-saving thing, at least for a while. It's going to take a little while to recoup my money on this and for it to be a return on investment. It's going to take quite a few hoses. However, the convenience of a hose blowing or a piece of equipment going down and me just being able to run right here to the shop in 10 to 15 minutes, have a hose made, have it back on the equipment, back out in the field working, whether that's on a weekend or after hours during the week, to me that's almost priceless. So I'm glad I got this thing now, that I've used it and made some hoses with it. I think this is going to be very handy. It's going to be one of those things that you may not need a whole lot, maybe 3-4 times a year max, but when you need it, you need it. And if you got it sitting here ready to go, then that's less downtime and less loss of production. Get a hose made and get back out in the field and finish doing what we were doing. And hopefully it made sense when I was going over how to set this up to be able to crimp the certain size hoses. It's kind of hard to explain on video, but once you do it a few times, really once, it'll click for you just like that, and it'll make sense. Anyhow, that's it for this video. Hopefully that helped you out. We'll see you on the next one.